My girlfriend demanded, "If you can't afford my lifestyle, step aside for someone who can." I said, "You're absolutely right." I stopped paying her credit card bills instantly. She called me screaming when her card declined at a Michelin star restaurant with her new date. So here's the thing about dating someone who treats you like a human ATM. Eventually, the machine stops dispensing cash. Took me 2 years to figure that out, but when I did, the shutdown was immediate and absolutely beautiful. I'm 31, work in logistics management for a mid-sized shipping company. Nothing flashy, but the money's solid. 6 figures, good benefits, predictable schedule. I drive a paid-off truck, own a decent townhouse, and generally mind my business. Not the kind of guy who needs to flex or prove anything to anyone. Met Brittany at a corporate networking thing about 2 years back. She worked in event planning, always dressed sharp, knew how to work a room. Pretty in that high-maintenance way. The kind of pretty that requires a standing appointment at 3 different salons. We hit it off initially. She was funny, confident, seemed to have her life together. First few months were normal enough. We'd split dinner bills, take turns planning dates, the usual give and take. She had her own apartment in a trendy part of downtown, drove a leased BMW, and talked a lot about building her brand. I didn't think much of it at the time. Looking back, the warning signs were there from the start. She name-dropped expensive restaurants she'd been to, mentioned designer brands casually in conversation. Her apartment had that Instagram-ready aesthetic: white furniture, gold accents, plants positioned for optimal lighting, the kind of place that looks amazing in photos, but costs a fortune to maintain. She worked maybe 20 hours a week, but lived like she was pulling 6 figures. I should have asked more questions. I didn't. The shift happened gradually, so gradual I barely noticed until I was already neck-deep in it. It started with little comments. We'd be looking at a menu and she'd mention how she usually orders whatever she wants without checking prices. Or we'd walk past a boutique and she'd casually say she misses being able to shop without budgeting, always delivered with this little sigh, like she was reminiscing about better times. I'd ask what changed. She'd give vague answers about the economy, about event planning being seasonal, about how starting a business was harder than she expected. Made it sound temporary, made it sound like she was just in a rough patch. Being the idiot I was, I took the bait, started picking up more tabs, offered to cover things here and there. Figured I was being a good boyfriend, showing I could provide, be generous. Classic mistake. The first time I paid for something significant was about 4 months in. We'd gone to this upscale place for her birthday. She ordered the full experience: appetizers, entrees, dessert, the works. When the check came, she reached for her purse, then got this panicked look. Said she'd left her wallet at home. Was so embarrassed. Kept apologizing. I waved it off. Told her it was her birthday, my treat anyway. She hugged me. Told me I was amazing. Said she'd get the next one. She didn't. A week later, we went to brunch. Check came. She didn't even reach for her purse. Just sat there looking at me expectantly. I paid. Didn't say anything. That became the pattern. I paid for dates. Every single one. She stopped offering. Stopped pretending. Just assumed. After about 6 months, the requests started getting bigger. Within 6 months, I was essentially funding her entire lifestyle. It didn't happen overnight. That's the thing about financial manipulation. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. First it was dinners. Then it was her saying she was a bit short on rent this month. Could I help out just this once? Then her car payment was higher than expected. Then her credit card had an unexpected balance she couldn't quite cover. The rent thing happened around month 7. She called me crying. Said her biggest client had delayed payment on an event, and now she was $800 short on rent. Asked if I could loan it to her just until the check cleared. Promised she'd pay me back the second it hit her account. I transferred the money that day. The check cleared 2 weeks later, according to her. I never saw a dime of that $800. A month after that, her car payment bounced. Bank fee put her account in the negative. Could I cover the payment plus the fee? She'd pay me back with her next paycheck. Another $600. Never saw it again. Then it was her insurance, her phone bill, her internet. Always small enough that making a big deal about it felt petty. Always positioned as temporary. Always with promises to pay me back. Every time it was temporary. Every time she'd pay me back. Except she never did. I kept a mental tally at first. Told myself I'd bring it up when it hit a certain amount. But that number kept moving. 500 became 1,000. 1,000 became 5. 5 became 10. Before I knew it, I'd been subsidizing her life to the tune of about $3,000 a month for over a year. The wild part? She never actually asked directly. It was always implied. Always positioned as me offering, me stepping up, Me being the man. She was just the damsel with unfortunate financial timing. Meanwhile, she was posting on social media about her amazing independent life. Photos of her apartment, her outfits, her brunch spots. Her friends commenting about how she was such a boss, how she was crushing it, how inspiring she was. All funded by me. I started noticing other things too. She'd complain about money to her friends on the phone, then ask me if we could try that new sushi place this weekend. She'd post about being a struggling entrepreneur, then show up wearing a new bag that cost more than my monthly utilities. The cognitive dissonance was wild, but I convinced myself she needed support. That relationships were about being there for each other, that I was being a good partner. Her credit card situation was the crown jewel of the whole setup. About 8 months into us dating, she mentioned her credit card debt was getting out of hand. Interest rates were killing her, making it impossible to get ahead. She showed me the statements, 12 grand across 3 cards, all maxed out. Said she felt so stressed about it, couldn't sleep, was embarrassed to even tell me. The balances were from before we met, she said, from when she was building her business, buying equipment, paying for marketing, investing in herself. Now the minimum payments alone were eating up half her income. I made the suggestion myself, told her I'd add her as an authorized user on one of my cards, the one with the best rewards program, and a stupid high limit I never came close to using. She could consolidate, pay off her cards, and then we'd tackle my card together with no interest for the first year. She cried, actually cried, told me I was saving her life, that she'd never forget this, that she'd pay me back double. Yeah, the card arrived at her place within a week. She sent me a photo of it with a heart emoji and said she'd use it responsibly. That lasted about 3 days. First charge was $400 at a spa. Full day package, massage, facial, mani-pedi, the works. She texted me a selfie in a robe, said she needed to de-stress after all the financial anxiety I'd helped relieve. Then $600 on a handbag. Said it was an investment piece, something she needed for client meetings to look professional. Then $350 at some organic meal prep service. Said she was taking her health seriously and this would actually save money in the long run. Then $500 at a boutique gym. Personal training package, again, for her health. I'd see the notifications pop up on my phone and just accept it. Told myself she was working on her business, needed to maintain appearances, deserved to feel good about herself. The charges got more frequent, more expensive. $200 here for shoes, $300 there for a facial treatment, $750 for a new phone because hers was running slow and she needed it for work. Within 3 months, she'd put another 8 grand on my card. I didn't say anything. Kept thinking about the interest we were avoiding. Kept telling myself this was still better than her paying 20% on her old cards. Meanwhile, I was eating sandwiches at my desk and driving past the gas station with the cheaper prices. Her social media presence exploded during this time. Professional photos of her in those new outfits, aesthetic shots of her apartment, stories about her morning routine with products from that organic meal service. Everything carefully curated to show success. And the comments rolled in. People congratulating her, asking how she did it, telling her she was an inspiration. She'd screenshot the nice comments and send them to me. Look, people are noticing. The investment is paying off. This is all going to be worth it. I wanted to believe her. So I did. The kicker was how she talked about money around her friends. I'd hear her on the phone, complaining about being broke, saying how hard it was out here for independent women, how expensive everything was. Then she'd hang up and ask me if we could go to that new steakhouse this weekend. Her friends thought she was self-made. Her social media showed this curated life of brunch spots and designer details. And I was the invisible bank funding the whole production. I didn't even mind it that much at first, if I'm being honest. I liked feeling needed, liked that she depended on me. Made me feel important, you know? Provider energy and all that. But somewhere along the line, dependence turned into entitlement. She stopped saying thank you, stopped acknowledging that I was covering everything, started treating it like that's just what boyfriends do, started getting annoyed when I'd suggest cheaper alternatives or mention I was trying to save for something. The final straw came on a random Tuesday. We were at her apartment, half watching some show, when she brought up this vacation package she'd seen. 10 days in the Maldives, all-inclusive resort, overwater bungalows, the whole fantasy. I laughed and said something like, yeah, that'd be incredible someday. She didn't laugh. She got this look on her face. Irritated. Like I'd said something offensive. That's when she hit me with it. She said if I couldn't afford to maintain the lifestyle she expected, maybe I should step aside for someone who could. Not even in a heated moment. Not during a fight. Just casual. Matter of fact. Like she was stating an obvious truth. I just stared at her for a second, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. She kept going, said she wasn't getting any younger, needed to think about her future, deserved someone who could match her ambitions, said she'd been patient with me, but maybe we wanted different things, said she'd been getting attention from other guys, successful guys, and maybe she should explore those options. Then she asked if I understood where she was coming from. I understood perfectly. I told her she was absolutely right, that she deserved someone who could afford her, that I clearly wasn't that guy, that she should definitely pursue those other options. She looked surprised, like she'd been expecting me to panic, to promise I'd do better, to beg her to give me another chance. Instead, I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and told her I'd give her the space to figure out what she wanted. She called after me, saying, "Wait, we should talk about this." She didn't mean it like that. I left anyway, drove home in complete silence. No music, no podcast, nothing. Just me and the sound of my truck and the realization that I'd been played for 2 solid years. Got home, opened my laptop, and started making moves. First thing I did was log into my credit card account, pulled up every transaction she'd made in the past 18 months, exported it all to a spreadsheet, organized it by category. The numbers were worse than I thought. Total damage, $41,863. Not including the cash I'd given her here and there. Not including the rent I'd covered. Not including the random bills I'd paid. Just the credit card. Just the stuff I could document. I sat there looking at that number for a solid 10 minutes. 41 grand. On what? I scrolled through the charges. 8,000 on clothing and accessories. Designer jeans, silk blouses, leather jackets, handbags with price tags that made me nauseous, shoes she wore maybe twice, 4,000 on beauty and wellness, hair appointments every 2 weeks at a place that charged $250 a session, lash extensions, spray tans, facials, manicures, the full maintenance routine required to maintain that Instagram aesthetic, 6,000 on boutique fitness, that personal training package, yoga classes at some trendy studio, Pilates reformer sessions, a meditation retreat that cost more than my monthly mortgage, 5,000 on food delivery and meal services, not groceries, prepared meals from organic delivery services, smoothie subscriptions, supplement packages, 3,000 on random home goods, throw pillows, decorative trays, candles that cost $40 each, plants, artwork, all for that curated apartment aesthetic, 2,000 on photography and content creation, professional photo shoots for her social media, a ring light, a new camera, editing software subscriptions, and the rest? Concerts, girls' trips she went on without me, hotel rooms for staycations, rideshare charges because she didn't want to drive, subscription boxes, random impulse purchases from brands I'd never heard of, not a single charge related to her actual business, not one piece of event planning equipment, no software for managing clients, no marketing materials, nothing. It was all personal, all vanity, all maintaining an image. She'd literally built an entire fake persona funded by my credit line, and she'd had the nerve to tell me I wasn't enough. I didn't get angry. That's the thing that surprised me. I didn't feel rage or betrayal or even hurt. I felt calm, detached, like I was finally seeing clearly after 2 years of walking around in fog. I opened a new document and started typing, drafted a simple message. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. Told her I'd thought about what she said and agreed we wanted different things. Wished her the best. Told her I was removing her as an authorized user from my credit card effective immediately and she should make alternative arrangements for any pending charges. Sent it. Then I logged into my credit card account and deleted her user access. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. The most satisfying click of my entire life. Didn't block her number. Didn't unfriend her on social media. Didn't make a scene. Just cut the funding and went to bed. Slept like a rock. Woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and about 30 texts. All from her. Progression went from confused to annoyed, to angry, to desperate over the course of 6 hours. The early ones were asking what I meant by my message, saying we should talk, saying I was overreacting. The middle ones were accusing me of being petty, saying I was trying to control her, saying this was financial abuse. The later ones were apologizing, saying she didn't mean what she said, saying she loved me, saying we could work through this. I didn't respond to any of them. Went to work, did my job, came home, went to the gym, lived my life. She kept texting, kept calling. I kept ignoring. 3 days went by. The messages got less frequent. Figured she'd moved on. Found one of those successful guys she'd mentioned. Good for her. Then, Friday night happened. I was at home, meal prepping for the week, when my phone started blowing up. Not texts this time. Calls, one after another. I ignored the first two. The third one I picked up. She was screaming. Literally screaming. Could barely understand what she was saying between the crying and the yelling. I caught fragments. Something about a restaurant. Something about her card being declined. Something about me ruining her life. I waited for her to run out of breath, then asked her calmly what the problem was. She lost it all over again. Said she was at dinner. Her card got declined. She looked like an idiot in front of everyone. How could I do this to her? What was wrong with me? I asked where she was. She named some fancy spot downtown. The kind of place with a months-long wait list and a dress code. I asked who she was with. She got quiet, then said it didn't matter. I said it kind of did matter, actually, since she'd specifically mentioned exploring options with other successful guys, and here she was 3 days later at a Michelin star restaurant with someone who apparently wasn't me. More silence. Then she started crying again, said I was being cruel, said she'd made a mistake, said she didn't actually want to break up, said I'd completely misunderstood what she meant. I told her I understood perfectly. She wanted someone who could afford her lifestyle. I agreed I wasn't that person, so she was free to find someone who was. And since she was at dinner with what I assumed was a potential replacement, seemed like she was well on her way. She tried to backtrack, said it wasn't like that, said it was just a friend, said she thought we were still together. I asked if she'd told her dinner companion she had a boyfriend. She didn't answer. I told her she should probably figure out payment for her meal and hung up. She called back immediately. I declined it. She called again. Declined again. She sent a flurry of texts. Ignored them all. Finished my meal prep, watched a game, went to bed. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Answered it thinking it might be work. It was Brittany's mom. Oh, this was going to be good. Her mom started in on me immediately. Said Brittany had called her in tears. Said I'd humiliated her, abandoned her, left her stranded at a restaurant. Said she didn't raise her daughter to be treated this way. I let her finish her whole speech. Then I calmly explained that Brittany had told me I wasn't financially successful enough for her and should step aside for someone who was. So I did exactly that. Stepped aside. Removed her access to my credit card. And now she was free to date whoever she wanted. Her mom sputtered. Said that couldn't be true. Said Brittany would never say something like that. I told her she was welcome to ask her daughter about it. Then I mentioned that Brittany had racked up over $40,000 on my credit card in 18 months and hadn't paid back a single cent despite multiple promises to do so. Dead silence. Then her mom said she didn't know about any of that. I said most people didn't. That Brittany was very good at managing her image. Her mom got defensive. Said I was making her daughter sound terrible. Said relationships were about supporting each other. Said I was being selfish. I told her she was right. Relationships were about support. Mutual support. Not one person funding another person's luxury lifestyle while being told they're not enough. She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, Brittany called. Said her mom had just reamed her out. Asked what I'd told her. Accused me of trying to turn her family against her. I told her I'd told her mom the truth. That she'd said I should step aside for someone more successful, and that she'd charged $41,000 to my credit card without paying any of it back. She tried to spin it. Said I was taking what she said out of context. Said the credit card thing was complicated. Said I'd offered to help her, and now I was using it against her. I asked her what the proper context was for telling your boyfriend to step aside for someone richer. She couldn't answer that. Then she shifted tactics. Started crying. Said she'd made a mistake. Said she was stressed and said something stupid. Said she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I asked her about the dinner Friday night. Asked who she was with. She said it was just someone from a networking event. Said it wasn't a date. Said she was trying to drum up business for her event planning. I asked if this networking contact knew she had a boyfriend. She went quiet. I asked if he was the one who was supposed to pay for dinner. More silence. Then she said it didn't matter because he ended up being useless anyway. That's when I knew for sure. She'd already been lining up replacements, testing the waters, seeing if she could upgrade. The dinner was absolutely a date, and when her card declined and her date bailed, suddenly I looked pretty good again. I told her we were done. For real this time. No more conversations. No more chances. She started begging. Said she'd change. Said she'd get a real job. Said she'd pay me back every penny. Said she couldn't lose me. I told her she'd already lost me the second she suggested I step aside. She asked if there was anything she could do. I said no and hung up. She texted me about 50 times over the next hour. Long paragraphs about how sorry she was. How she'd never felt this way about anyone. how she was going to prove she'd changed. I didn't respond to any of them. 2 days later, a mutual friend reached out. Guy named Kevin who worked in finance. I'd met him at a few of Brittany's social events. He said Brittany had called him crying, asked if he'd talk to me, convinced me to give her another chance. I asked Kevin if Brittany had ever mentioned me when we'd met at those events. He thought about it, said actually no. He'd assumed I was just a friend. She'd never introduced me as her boyfriend, never mentioned being in a relationship. I asked if she'd flirted with him. He hesitated, then admitted she'd given him her number once, suggested they grab coffee sometime. He'd thought she was single and interested. I told him about the credit card debt, about the restaurant incident, about her telling me to step aside. Kevin said he had no idea, said she always seemed really independent, always talked about her business like it was thriving. I said that was the image she sold. Reality was different. He said he wouldn't be reaching out on her behalf anymore. The messages from Brittany kept coming for about a week. Then they slowed down, then stopped completely. I figured that was the end of it. I went about my weekend, didn't hear from Brittany at all on Saturday. Figured she was regrouping. Sunday afternoon, I got a long email. It was the apology tour. The full production. 5 paragraphs of regret and promises. Said she'd made a horrible mistake. Said she never should have said those things. Said she was stressed about money and took it out on me. Said she loved me. Said she'd do anything to fix this. Went into detail about how she'd been reflecting. How she realized she'd been living beyond her means. How she'd been using shopping and appearances to cope with insecurity about her business, not taking off the way she'd hoped. Said she'd already started looking for stable employment. Said she'd contacted a credit counselor. Said she was ready to make real changes. Ended with her asking if we could meet up and talk. Said she owed me a face-to-face conversation at minimum. I read it twice. Then I checked the timestamp. She'd sent it at 2 in the morning, probably after a few hours of crafting and revising, making sure it hit all the right emotional notes. I deleted it. Didn't respond. Didn't acknowledge it. Just deleted it and moved on with my day. The next morning, I got a call from another unknown number. Almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was Brittany's best friend, Amanda. I'd met her maybe a dozen times over the 2 years. She jumped right in. Said Brittany was a mess. Said she'd never seen her this broken up over a guy. Said maybe I should hear her out. I asked Amanda if she'd known about the credit card situation. She said she knew Brittany had some debt, but not the full extent. I asked if she'd ever lent Brittany money. Long pause. Then yeah, a few times. Small amounts. 100 here, 50 there. I asked if Brittany had paid her back. Another pause. Then, no, not yet. I told her to add it to my list of 41,000. Amanda went quiet, then said she didn't realize it was that much. I said most people didn't. That was kind of Brittany's whole strategy. Amanda asked what I meant. I explained the pattern, the gradual escalation, the promises to pay back that never materialized, the positioning of every request as temporary until it became permanent. The whole playbook. Amanda said she felt sick, said she'd been defending Brittany to mutual friends all week, said she'd told people I was being cruel and heartless. I told her she was welcome to her opinion. She apologized, said she was going to have a very different conversation with Brittany than the one she'd planned. She hung up. Monday at work, I got a message from one of Brittany's friends. Girl named Jessica, who I'd met a handful of times at group things. She said she'd heard Brittany and I broke up. Said Brittany was devastated. Said maybe I should give her another chance. Said everyone makes mistakes. I thanked her for reaching out, but said I was good. She pushed back. Said Brittany really loved me. Said she'd never seen her this upset. Said I was being harsh. I told her the whole story. The credit card. The 41 grand. The comment about stepping aside. The Michelin star restaurant with another guy 3 days later. Jessica went quiet. Then said she had no idea. Said Brittany always made it seem like she paid for everything herself. I said, yeah, that was kind of the point. Jessica apologized for bothering me and said she understood. I worked late that day. Came home to find a package on my doorstep. No return address. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a framed photo of Brittany and me from about a year ago. Some event we'd gone to. We looked happy. Below the frame was a handwritten note. Remember when things were good? We can get back there. I promise I'll be different. Please just give me a chance to prove it. B. I stared at it for a minute. Then I put the whole thing in my garage. Didn't throw it away. Didn't display it. Just stored it. Evidence of the whole mess if I ever needed it. The next few weeks were a masterclass in watching someone's carefully constructed facade crumble. Brittany's social media presence took a nosedive. The daily posts of fancy brunches and designer bags stopped. She posted a few vague things about fake people and hard lessons. then basically went dark. I didn't follow her anymore, but mutual friends would occasionally mention things they'd seen. Her apartment got listed for rent. Apparently, she'd been 3 months behind on payments. The landlord had started eviction proceedings. The BMW disappeared from her usual parking spot. Someone said they saw a repo truck towing it away at like 6 in the morning. Her event planning business website went offline. The domain wasn't renewed. Heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd had to move back in with her parents. The downtown apartment was way out of her actual budget. The BMW got repossessed. She'd apparently been living completely beyond her means and using me to bridge the gap. Her event planning business, which I'd always assumed was thriving based on how she talked about it, was basically non-existent. She'd done maybe 3 small events in 2 years. Everything else was smoke and mirrors. The rest was her cobbling together random freelance gigs that barely covered her phone bill. The guy from the restaurant? Apparently he was some finance bro she'd met on a dating app. Showed up in a nice suit, talked a big game, ordered an expensive bottle, then suggested they split the check when her card declined. She'd called him several times after that night. He'd ghosted her. One of the mutual friends told me Brittany had been on 5 different dating apps in the 2 weeks after we broke up, had been matching with anyone who looked financially successful, meeting up with multiple guys a week. None of them stuck around past the first date once they figured out what she was about. Jessica reached out again about 3 weeks after our first conversation. Said she'd talked to a few other people in Brittany's circle. Turns out she owed money to at least 7 different people. The amounts ranged from $100 to a couple thousand. Nobody had been paid back. Jessica said she'd lent Brittany $300 about 6 months ago. Brittany had said it was for a business expense. Jessica later saw the shoes she'd bought that week. $350. Same amount, same timeline. I heard all this through the grapevine. Didn't seek the information out. Didn't ask. People just volunteered it. Apparently, watching someone's fake life collapse in real time is prime gossip material. About a month after everything went down, Brittany showed up at my place. I was in my garage, working on my truck, when I heard a car pull up. Looked over and saw her getting out of what I assumed was her mom's sedan. Older model. Nothing like the BMW she used to drive. She looked different. No makeup. Hair in a ponytail. Wearing jeans and a regular t-shirt. None of the usual production. For the first time in 2 years, she looked like a normal person instead of an Instagram filter. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, wrench in hand, waiting. She stood by the car for a second, like she was gathering courage. Then walked over. Started with another apology. Said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. Said she realized how badly she'd messed up. Said she took me for granted. Said she was sorry. I nodded. Didn't interrupt. Just let her talk. She said she'd moved back in with her parents. Said she'd been applying for jobs. Said she'd canceled all her subscriptions and memberships. Said she was living differently now. I asked if she'd paid back any of the people she owed money to. She looked down. Said she was working on it. Said she was broke right now, but as soon as she got a job, that was her first priority. I asked how many people there were. She hesitated, then said she wasn't sure. Maybe 10 or 12 if you counted everyone. I asked how much total. She didn't want to answer. I waited. Finally, she said probably around 50,000, maybe a bit more. So it wasn't just me. I was just the biggest mark. She said she wanted to make things right. Asked if there was any way I'd consider giving her another chance. I asked her a simple question. Asked if she'd actually changed or if she was just out of options. She got tears in her eyes. Said that wasn't fair. I said it was completely fair. Said when she had access to my money and thought she could do better, she told me to step aside. Now that the money was gone and the replacement didn't work out, suddenly she realized what we had. Asked her how that was supposed to make me feel. She said she understood why I was angry, but people make mistakes. I told her she was right. People do make mistakes. And I made mine by funding her lifestyle for 2 years, while she shopped around for someone better. She started crying harder. Said she never cheated. Said that dinner was just dinner. Said I was blowing everything out of proportion. I told her even if I believed that, which I didn't, the fundamental problem remained. She saw me as a financial resource, not a partner. And the second she thought she could upgrade, she tried to. The fact that it didn't work out didn't change her intentions. She said she'd prove she'd changed. Said she'd get a real job. Said she'd pay me back. Said she'd do whatever it took. I asked her specifically what job she was applying for. She mentioned a few administrative positions. Reception work, data entry, nothing in event planning. I asked if she was still trying to build her business. She said no. Said she'd accepted it wasn't happening. Said she needed stability. I asked when that realization hit. She said after I cut her off. After everything fell apart. after she couldn't maintain the lifestyle anymore. So she didn't change because she wanted to. She changed because she had to. I told her I believed she'd try, but trying wasn't enough. Said I spent 2 years being her safety net, and I was done with that role. She asked if there was anything she could say that would change my mind. I told her no. She stood there for a minute, crying, then finally walked back to her car and left. Didn't hear from her again after that. Changed my number a week later just to be sure. Updated my address with anything that mattered. Basically scrubbed her from my life. 3 months later, I was at the grocery store when I spotted her mom in the checkout line. She saw me at the same time. Her face went red. For a second, I thought she might just pretend she didn't notice me. But instead, she walked over. Apologized. Said she'd talked to Brittany more after our phone call. Said she had no idea how bad things had gotten. Said Brittany had been lying to her too, telling her parents she was doing great financially when she was actually drowning. I told her I appreciated her saying that. She asked if Brittany had reached out to pay me back yet. I said no. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Then she handed me a check, $2,000. Said it wasn't much compared to what Brittany owed me, but it was what she could manage. Said she felt partially responsible for raising someone who thought that behavior was acceptable. I tried to refuse it. She insisted. Said it would help her sleep better at night. I took the check. Thanked her. We went our separate ways. Never cashed it. Felt weird taking money from her mom, but I kept it. Reminder that at least one person in that family had some accountability. Around the same time, I got a friend request on social media from the finance bro. Yeah, the guy from the restaurant. Accepted it out of curiosity. He messaged me immediately. Said he'd heard my name come up in conversation with Brittany and put two and two together. Said he wanted to give me a heads up that she'd been trying to get back in touch with him, asking if he wanted to try again, saying she'd handled her financial situation. I asked why he was telling me this. He said because she'd tried to get him to pay off her credit card debt on their second date. Literally asked him if he'd be willing to help her out as an investment in their future together. They'd known each other for 8 days. He said he figured if she was doing that to him, she'd probably done worse to me. I confirmed that was accurate. He said he'd blocked her after that but wanted to warn me in case she circled back around. I told him I'd already handled it, but appreciated the heads up. We ended up getting a drink the following week. Turns out he was a decent guy. Just had the misfortune of matching with her on an app. We compared notes. Apparently her whole approach was identical. Play up the struggling independent woman angle. Mention financial stress casually. Then escalate to direct asks once she thought the hook was set. He'd matched with her 3 weeks after our breakup. She'd already been testing the waters while we were still together. That tracking made sense with the timeline. 2 weeks after that, Jessica reached out again. Said she felt bad about how everything went down. Said she'd been thinking about our conversation and realized she'd seen red flags with Brittany for a while, but ignored them because they were friends. Then she asked if I wanted to meet up. We got coffee. She apologized for pushing me to give Brittany another chance without knowing the full story. Said she'd actually lent Brittany money a few times over the years and never been paid back either. Small amounts, couple hundred here and there, but still. She said after everything came out, she'd started asking around. Turned out Brittany owed money to at least 4 other people in her social circle. Nobody wanted to say anything because it felt petty, but once one person mentioned it, everyone else chimed in. Jessica had cut her off completely. Said most of their mutual friends had done the same. I asked where Brittany ended up. Jessica said she'd moved 2 states over, got some entry-level job, was apparently dating someone new already, some guy she'd met online. Jessica had seen it on social media before Brittany blocked her. I asked what prompted the block. Jessica said she'd commented on one of Brittany's posts, asking when she planned to pay people back. Brittany deleted the comment, sent her a long message about betrayal and negativity, then blocked her. We ended up hanging out a few more times after that. Nothing romantic, just became actual friends. She introduced me to her social circle. Normal people. People who split checks and didn't treat relationships like business transactions. Met a woman named Rachel through that group about 4 months after everything went down. She worked in education, drove a practical car, lived in a modest apartment. On our first date, she paid for her half before I could even offer. Second date, she insisted on getting the whole check since I'd driven. When I told her about the Brittany situation, not in detail, just that I'd gotten out of something that wasn't healthy, she said she'd been in similar situations before and understood why people build walls. We've been seeing each other for 3 months now. She's never once asked me to pay for something of hers. Never hinted at financial stress. Never treated me like an ATM with legs. Last week, I logged into my credit card account and made the final payment on Brittany's debt, $41,863. Took me 14 months to clear it. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My girlfriend humiliated me at dinner, telling everyone, he's basically broke and clueless. So I pulled up the receipts and her face dropped when she realized I'd been covering her whole life. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this story is going to make your blood boil before it gets satisfying. This happened 2 months ago, and I'm still processing how someone can be this delusional. My buddy told me I needed to share this here because apparently it's peak Reddit material. Here we go. I'm 29, work in a shipping company based out of North Carolina. Not the most glamorous job, but it pays well. Really well, actually. I handle route optimization and vendor contracts. I clear about $140,000 a year, own my condo outright, and drive a 2019 4Runner that I bought cash after my last promotion. The 4Runner was a reward to myself after landing this job 3 years back. Magnetic gray metallic with the off-road premium package. Added a roof rack and all-weather floor mats. That thing is my baby. I'm not flashy with money. Grew up watching my parents stress about every bill, so when I started making good money, I promised myself I'd be smart about it. Maxed out my 401k, got a financial advisor, started an index fund portfolio. My condo is in a solid neighborhood, 2 bedrooms, nice kitchen, decent view. Furnished it properly over time with actual quality stuff instead of particle board garbage. My place became my pride. Spent months finding the right couch. Had to be leather, comfortable, built to last. Got this sectional from a furniture outlet going out of business. Talked them down to half price because I paid cash. Same with the dining table, the bed frame, everything. After a couple failed relationships where girls either wanted me to bankroll their lifestyle or got weird about me having money saved up, I basically wrote off dating for a while. Focused on work, hit the gym, got into mountain biking. Life was simple. Then I met Brittany in March of last year at a charity auction my company sponsored. She was there with her friend who worked in event planning. Dark hair, great smile, worked as a receptionist at a dental office downtown. We talked for maybe 20 minutes about random stuff. She seemed down to earth, laughed at my jokes, didn't immediately ask what I did for a living. Felt refreshing. The charity auction was this big annual thing my company does, where we donate items for a children's hospital fundraiser. I'd volunteered to help set up because it meant leaving work early, and honestly, the cause mattered. Brittany was helping her friend arrange the silent auction tables when I was hauling in donated gift baskets. She made some joke about me looking like I actually knew how to carry heavy things properly, which made me laugh. Most girls I met barely acknowledged physical work as a real skill. We exchanged numbers that night and started texting. Normal stuff at first. Memes, random thoughts, weekend plans. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me as a person, rather than sizing up my bank account. First date was mini golf and burgers, super casual. She insisted on splitting the check, which I thought was classy. Second date was hiking. Third date I took her to this Italian place, and she actually ordered real food instead of just a salad. The Italian place became our spot. Little family-owned joint run by this couple from Naples. Real red sauce, fresh pasta made daily. Brittany would order the chicken marsala every time. By date 5, I was thinking this might actually go somewhere. She had her own apartment, her own car, seemed independent, talked about wanting to advance at the dental office eventually, maybe become an office manager, had goals. That mattered to me because I'd dated too many women who just drifted through life expecting someone else to provide direction. Her apartment was this studio in an older building about 15 minutes from downtown. Nothing fancy, but she decorated it nice. Plants everywhere, art on the walls, actually used coasters. Rent was $1,100 a month, which she mentioned was stretching her budget, but she loved the location. The building was one of those 1960s constructions that hadn't been updated much, but her unit had hardwood floors, and she'd painted the walls this soft gray. Had real dishes instead of paper plates. The kind of details that suggested she had her life together despite the tight budget. We started dating officially in May. The relationship moved pretty naturally. Couple times a week turned into most nights, then basically living together by July. She'd stay at my place more often than hers because, well, my place was bigger and nicer, had central air, a real kitchen, space to actually spread out. Made sense. Here's where things get interesting. Brittany made about $38,000 a year at the dental office. Not terrible, but not exactly rolling in it either, especially in our city where cost of living kept climbing. Her car was this 2011 Honda Civic with 160,000 miles that needed something fixed every other month. I noticed pretty quick that money was tight for her. That Civic was held together by hope and duct tape, honestly. Check engine light had been on so long she'd put a piece of electrical tape over it. Driver's side window only went down 3/4 of the way. AC worked half the time. She'd joke about it being her reliable old friend, but I could tell the constant repairs stressed her out. Every time something broke, it was this whole calculation of whether she could afford to fix it or just live with whatever was wrong. At first, it was small stuff. Her car broke down and needed a $600 repair she didn't have sitting around. I offered to cover it because we were dating, and it felt like the right thing to do. She was grateful, said she'd pay me back. I told her not to worry about it. Figured it was a one-time thing. Then her student loan payment jumped up when her income-based repayment got recalculated. She was stressed about making rent that month. I quietly transferred her $800 and told her she could get me back whenever. Again, she thanked me profusely. Again, I said no rush. The student loans were apparently from her associate degree in dental assisting, before she switched to just being a receptionist. She'd racked up about $35,000 in debt for a 2-year program, which seemed insane to me, but that's the system, I guess. Her monthly payments had been $220 on the income-based plan, but when they recalculated based on her slightly higher salary after a small raise, it jumped to $380. That extra $160 was the difference between making rent and not making rent in her budget. Her credit card got declined at dinner one night, and she was mortified. I paid and later sent her $500 to cover whatever was going on. She explained she'd had some unexpected expenses and maxed out her card. I told her I understood. Stuff happens. See, this became a pattern I didn't fully recognize at first because it ramped up so gradually. Every few weeks there was something. Her insurance went up. Her phone bill was higher than expected. She needed new work clothes because the dress code changed. Her brother needed help with something, and she felt obligated. Emergency vet bill for her cat. On and on. The vet bill was $890 for her cat Luna, who apparently ate something toxic and needed emergency treatment. Brittany was literally in tears at the animal hospital because she didn't have her credit card with available balance, and they wouldn't do payment plans for the full amount. I drove over there at 11 p.m. and handed them my card without even thinking about it. Her cat was fine. She was grateful. I felt good about helping. Didn't occur to me to add it to some mental ledger. And every single time, I helped. Not because she demanded it or even really asked directly most of the time. She'd mention the problem and I'd offer a solution. Felt good to be able to help someone I cared about. Felt good to not stress about money the way my parents had. What's the point of having money if you can't make life easier for people you love, right? Except here's the thing I was too stupid to see at the time. She never paid me back. Not once. And after the first few times, she stopped even mentioning paying me back. It just became assumed that I'd handle whatever financial crisis popped up. By September, Brittany had basically moved into my place full-time. Still kept her apartment for appearance sake and stored some stuff there, but she was with me every single night, which meant I was covering groceries, utilities, streaming services, internet, everything. My bills went up across the board, but whatever, we were together. That's what couples do. Before Brittany, I'd spend maybe $300 a month on food. Once she moved in, we were hitting $700 to $800 monthly easy. She wanted specific brands, liked trying new recipes that required expensive ingredients. I didn't mind at the time because cooking together was nice, but I was funding 100% of it. I suggested she could cancel her apartment lease to save money, but she got weird about it, said she wanted to keep her independence, didn't want to feel like she was mooching. I respected that even though she was literally at her apartment maybe twice a month to grab clothes or check mail. She was paying $1,100 a month for what was basically a storage unit. Here's what I didn't realize until way too late. While I was covering all these expenses and basically funding her life, she was still getting her full paycheck every month. And that money was going somewhere that wasn't bills, because I was handling all the bills. I found out when I was using her laptop to look something up in October and saw she had Facebook open. Not snooping, just literally the page was up. And there were all these posts about her weekend shopping trips with her girlfriends, new clothes from Nordstrom, brunch at trendy spots, nail appointments, hair salon visits, concert tickets, a weekend trip to Charleston she'd mentioned, but downplayed. The Charleston trip got me because she'd told me it was just crashing with her friend's family, super low-key. But her photos showed a nice hotel overlooking the water, fancy restaurant meals, shopping in the historic district. I recognized the hotel because I'd looked at it for a work conference once. Rooms started at $280 a night. Her budget weekend with friends had clearly cost over $1,000. I didn't say anything at first. Told myself maybe she'd been saving up. Maybe she got a bonus. Maybe her parents helped her out. Made excuses because I didn't want to be that guy who monitors his girlfriend's spending. But it gnawed at me. Then, in November, we went to her friend Kayla's birthday dinner. Kayla was this loud personality who worked in pharmaceutical sales and made decent money. The dinner was at this upscale seafood place downtown, the kind where entrees start at $45 and they make a big deal about their wine pairings. There were about 10 people there. Brittany's friend group that I'd met a few times but never really clicked with. Kayla's boyfriend Josh, who worked in finance and never missed an opportunity to mention it. A couple other girls from their college days with their partners. The whole vibe was very, look how successful and put together we all are. Kayla had reserved this semi-private section of the restaurant with a long table that seated everyone. The decor was all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that tries too hard to be industrial chic. Our server introduced himself and immediately launched into the specials. Chilean sea bass, dayboat scallops, some lobster situation that cost $78. The drinks menu was leather-bound and had separate sections for whiskey flights and craft cocktails. Conversation was the usual surface-level stuff at first. Everyone catching up on jobs, travel plans, random gossip about people I didn't know. I was sitting there making polite small talk with the guy next to me about college football, while Brittany was down at the other end laughing with Kayla and her friends. Then Kayla starts asking everyone to go around and share their biggest wins from the year. Very influencer energy. People are talking about promotions, engagements, buying houses. When it gets to me, I keep it simple. Mention the contract I landed at work that saved the company $2 million annually. Kayla seems impressed, asks what I do. I explain logistics coordination, route optimization. Her eyes kind of glaze over because it's not sexy work, but she's polite about it. Then she turns to Brittany and asks about her year. Brittany starts talking about the dental office, some new software they're using, how she's learning the scheduling system. Pretty boring stuff, but fine. Then Kayla asks her about our relationship, how things are going, if she's happy. And this is where everything fell apart. Brittany laughs and says something like, "Oh yeah, things are good. He's sweet, you know? Takes care of things." Kayla raises her eyebrows. Takes care of things how? I should have seen the setup coming, but I was oblivious. Just sitting there eating my salmon. Brittany gets this weird smile and says, I mean, he's basically broke and clueless about real money stuff, but he tries hard, so it's cute. The table goes quiet for a second. I literally stop chewing. One of her other friends, Madison, jumps in. Wait, what? Broke? Brittany's on a roll now, enjoying the attention. Yeah, like, he's got this little logistics job that sounds fancy, but it's basically moving boxes around. Lives in a decent condo, but I think his parents helped him buy it. Drives a used SUV. He's comfortable, but not like really making moves, you know? I have to handle all the actual financial planning in our relationship because he just doesn't get it. I'm sitting there, fork in hand, absolutely stunned. Did she really just say that? Out loud? In front of everyone? Kayla looks uncomfortable now. Brittany, that seems a little harsh. But Brittany keeps going. No, I'm just being honest. He's a good guy, great personality, super reliable. But financially, I've had to really guide him. Like, I'm basically managing both our budgets at this point because he'd be lost without someone keeping track of things. I don't mind, though. Someone has to be the adult. Madison's boyfriend leans forward. Wait, you manage his budget? Like his money? Brittany nods. Well, I make sure we're not overspending on stupid stuff. He's one of those guys who'd buy the expensive brand of everything without even checking if there's a sale. No financial awareness at all. This is the point where I'd heard enough. I put down my fork very carefully. Took a sip of water. Let the silence hang there for a second while everyone looked uncomfortable. Then I pulled out my phone. Actually, Brittany, since we're talking about finances, let me pull up some numbers real quick. Her face immediately changed. Went from smug to nervous in about half a second. I opened my banking app and started scrolling. So in March, when your Civic needed that transmission repair, that was $615 I sent you, right? Then April, when your student loan payment jumped, I covered your rent shortfall. That was $800. The table was dead silent now. May was your credit card situation. I sent you $500. June was your insurance and that vet emergency with Luna. Total of $1,290. July, you needed help with your brother's situation. That was $350. August was the new work wardrobe because of the dress code change. I gave you $600 for that. Brittany's face was going red. Babe, can we talk about this later? I ignored her. September was first and last month's rent because you said your landlord was raising your rate. $2,400. Which is interesting because you still have your apartment, so I'm not sure what that money actually went to. October, I covered your car registration and inspection. $280. And just last week you needed help with your phone upgrade, $450. I did the math out loud. That's $7,285 in direct transfers since March, not counting the groceries I buy every week that run about $800 a month. So that's another $6,400. Utilities for my place went up about $200 a month since you moved in, so $1,600. Streaming services you wanted me to add, $240. Internet upgrade you said we needed, $360. Kayla's boyfriend Josh had his phone out and was actually calculating. Dude, that's over $15,000 in 8 months. I nodded. And that's just what I can quickly find. Doesn't count dinners, entertainment, gas money, the clothes I've bought you, the gifts. Doesn't count that Charleston trip you told me was budget-friendly when I saw the hotel was $280 a night and you went for 3 nights. Doesn't count Nordstrom bags I've seen coming into my place that definitely weren't in your budget if you can't cover a $600 car repair. Brittany was pale now. You're embarrassing me. I laughed, but it wasn't friendly. I'm embarrassing you? You just told a table full of people that I'm broke and clueless, that you have to manage my finances, that I needed my parents to buy my condo. Madison looked at Brittany. Did his parents buy his condo? I answered before Brittany could. Nope. Bought it myself 5 years ago. Paid it off 3 years ago. Completely own it. No mortgage. Josh whistled. In this market, what do you make? $140,000 base salary. Got a $25,000 bonus last year. Another $20,000 this year based on that contract I mentioned. My 401k is maxed out. I've got about $190,000 in index funds. Emergency fund that could cover 2 years of expenses. Oh, and I paid cash for my used SUV that apparently isn't impressive enough. Paid $35,000 for a vehicle that books at $42,000 because I negotiated and waited for the right deal. The whole table was staring at Brittany now. Kayla spoke carefully. So Brittany, when you said you manage the finances, Brittany tried to salvage it. I meant like, I help him make smart decisions about everyday stuff. I pulled up Venmo on my phone. Like when you requested $200 last month because you said you were short on groceries, except I'd already bought $750 worth of groceries that week. Where'd that money go? She didn't answer. I switched to my bank records. Or when you said you needed $400 for your student loan minimum payment because they'd increased it again? Except I pulled your credit report when we talked about moving in together officially. Your student loan payment is $380 a month. It hasn't changed. So where's the extra money going? Madison's eyes were wide. Brittany, what the heck? I kept going because honestly, 8 months of being used was pouring out now. I track every expense, every transfer, every bill, because that's what financially clueless people do, right? They maintain detailed spreadsheets and quarterly budget reviews. Pulled up my spreadsheet on my phone and turned it so the people near me could see. I've got 8 months of expenses here. Food, utilities, entertainment, health, transportation, housing, savings, investments, color-coded by category, updated weekly. I know exactly where every dollar goes. Josh was nodding appreciatively. That's some solid financial planning, man. I looked at Brittany directly. So explain to me, with your expert financial management, where your $38,000 annual salary goes when you're not paying rent most months, not buying groceries, not covering utilities, not paying for entertainment, and I'm handing you thousands in emergency money every few weeks? She couldn't. She just sat there looking like she wanted to disappear. One of the other girls, Ashley, who'd been quiet this whole time, said softly, Brittany, you told us he couldn't even afford to take you on vacation, that you had to budget everything. I laughed again. I took 4 weeks of PTO last year, spent 1 week in Colorado skiing, 1 week in Florida visiting family, used the other 2 for long weekends. Offered to take you to the Colorado trip, but you said you couldn't get time off work, which was fine, except I saw you took that same week off to go to Charleston with your friends. Brittany stood up. I'm not doing this here. I stayed seated. No, let's do this here, since you had no problem telling everyone how broke and clueless I am. Let's talk about how you've been using me as your personal ATM while spending your own money on whatever you want. Let's talk about how you've been living rent-free in my place, while keeping an apartment you barely use just so you can claim you're independent. Kayla tried to intervene. Maybe we should all calm down and... I cut her off, still looking at Brittany. I'm perfectly calm. I'm just providing some financial transparency, since apparently that's something I'm too clueless to understand. Your expert financial management has been taking money from someone you claim can't manage money, spending it on yourself, then telling people I'm the problem. Brittany grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. Cool. I'll cancel my card that's on file here so you can't stick me with the bill, since I'm so broke and all. That stopped her. What? I signaled the waiter over. Hey man, can you split the checks? I'll cover mine and anyone else who wants to join me. But my girlfriend will be handling her portion separately. The waiter looked confused but nodded. Brittany's face went white. I don't have, she started. Don't have what? Money? Thought you were the financially savvy one here? Should be no problem, right? Madison pulled out her card. I'll cover Brittany's portion. This is uncomfortable. I shrugged. Your money. But just so everyone knows, I've financially supported this person for 8 months, while she told people I was broke and needed her guidance. I'm done being the joke. Brittany left. Just turned and walked out. Her friends scrambled to figure out the bill situation while I paid my portion, and left a generous tip because the server didn't deserve to get stiffed for relationship drama. Josh stopped me on the way out. Hey man, for what it's worth, that was handled pretty professionally given the situation. Most guys would have blown up. I appreciated that. But honestly, I wasn't angry in a yelling way. I was angry in a, I'm making spreadsheets of every penny you owe me way, which is apparently more terrifying. Drove home alone. Got to my place, and all of Brittany's stuff was still there. Her clothes in my closet, her toiletries in my bathroom, her snacks in my pantry, her cat's food bowls in my kitchen. Evidence everywhere of how she'd inserted herself into my life. I spent the next 3 hours packing everything of hers into boxes and bags. Carefully, neatly, because that's how I do things. Every item of clothing, every makeup product, every book and phone charger and hair tie. Everything. The cat food situation annoyed me because I'd bought this fancy grain-free stuff she insisted Luna needed. $65 for a bag that would last a month. I'd bought 3 bags over time. Packed all of it. Found her spare key to my place and put that in a box too. Her spare toothbrush, her contact lens solution, her heating pad she'd left by the couch. Everything. By 2 a.m., I had 14 boxes and bags packed. Loaded them all into my 4Runner. Drove to her apartment and left everything neatly stacked by her door with a note. Since you're so good at managing finances, you can managing your own stuff now. Don't contact me. Drove home. Changed my locks first thing the next morning, because I'm not stupid. Cost me $180 to get a locksmith out on Sunday, but worth it for peace of mind. Brittany started texting around noon. First, it was apologies. I'm so sorry, I was just trying to be funny, it came out wrong. Then, it was excuses. I was nervous and said stupid things. Then it was deflection. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. I sent one text back. You told people I was broke and clueless while I was supporting you financially. There's nothing to discuss. She called. I declined. She called again. Declined. Sent a text saying if she contacted me again, I'd send her an itemized invoice for the money she owed me and take her to small claims court if necessary. That shut her up for about a day. Then her friends started messaging. Madison apologized for how things went down. Ashley said Brittany was going through something, and I should consider being understanding. Kayla sent a long message about how relationships are complicated and maybe we both made mistakes. I didn't respond to any of them. Not my circus anymore. What I did do was pull all my financial records and create a comprehensive spreadsheet of every penny I'd given Brittany or spent on her. Direct transfers, groceries, utilities, entertainment, everything came out to $18,347.82 over 8 months. $18,000 on someone who told people I was broke. I sent the spreadsheet to my financial advisor just to get his take on how stupid I'd been. He called me immediately. This is financial abuse. She was using you as a bank while telling people you had no money? That's textbook manipulation. That hit different hearing it from someone objective. My advisor helped me draft a formal letter requesting repayment. Sent it certified mail to Brittany's apartment. Laid out every expense, every transfer, every receipt. Gave her 30 days to respond with a payment plan, or I'd file in small claims court. Her response came 2 weeks later through a lawyer letter. Basically said all money given was gifts. There was no written agreement for repayment. She had no legal obligation to return anything. The lawyer also mentioned that publicly humiliating her at dinner could be considered defamation, and I should cease all contact and harassment. I laughed out loud reading that, forwarded it to my own lawyer, who I'd already consulted because I'm not actually clueless about this stuff. My lawyer sent back a response pointing out that 1. Several texts from Brittany explicitly mentioned paying me back, which established debt not gifts. 2. Truth is an absolute defense to defamation, and everything I'd said at dinner was factually accurate with bank records to prove it. 3. One certified letter doesn't constitute harassment. 4. We'd be happy to present all evidence in small claims court. Never heard from her lawyer again. The small claims filing went through in December. Court date set for January. I showed up with a binder full of bank statements, text message screenshots, Venmo records, credit card statements, and my beautiful spreadsheet with everything color-coded and annotated. The binder was organized like a work presentation because that's how my brain works. Tabs for each category of expense. Chronological order within each section. Highlighted relevant portions. Even included a table of contents and an executive summary on the first page. My lawyer saw it and said most people show up to small claims with crumpled receipts in a grocery bag. I showed up like I was presenting to the board of directors. Brittany showed up with her friend Madison for moral support and no documentation whatsoever. She was wearing what looked like a new outfit, black pants and a blazer that still had the sizing sticker on the sleeve that she'd missed. Probably tried to look professional, but just looked unprepared. The judge asked her to explain why she believed the money was gifts rather than loans. She gave this rambling story about how we were in a relationship and partners help each other, and I never explicitly said I wanted the money back. Kept saying things like, he offered, and I didn't ask for it, without acknowledging that she'd absolutely created situations where offering was the only reasonable response. I pulled out the text screenshots where she'd said things like, I'll pay you back as soon as I can, and thank you for covering this. I promise I'm good for it. Had them printed out, dated, highlighted. Submitted them as exhibits A through M because there were 13 separate instances of her explicitly acknowledging the money was a loan. Judge asked if she had any record of attempting to pay me back. She said she'd been planning to, but hadn't gotten around to it. The judge asked how long she'd been planning. She didn't have an answer that made sense. Judge asked about her financial situation. She claimed she was barely getting by, living paycheck to paycheck, couldn't afford to pay anything back. Said her salary barely covered her basic expenses, and she had student loans and other debts. I pulled out screenshots of her social media showing expensive brunches, shopping trips, concert tickets, and the Charleston vacation. Had them organized by date with price estimates based on visible receipts or known costs of the venues. Submitted credit card statements I'd pulled during our relationship when we discussed finances that showed she'd been spending thousands monthly on non-essentials. The credit card statements were from when she'd asked me to help her organize her finances back in July, which meant I'd seen her full spending history at that point. The judge took about 3 minutes reviewing everything, looked at Brittany over her reading glasses and said something like, Ma'am, you have text messages admitting debt, you have evidence of discretionary spending well beyond someone who's struggling, and you've provided no documentation supporting your claims. This is pretty straightforward. Judge was not impressed. Ruled in my favor for $12,500. The direct transfers I could prove with clear text evidence of her acknowledging debt. Didn't include groceries or utilities, since those could be argued as shared relationship expenses. Set up a payment plan of $500 monthly for 25 months. Brittany looked like she was going to cry. Asked the judge if there was any way to reduce the amount or the monthly payment. Judge said, You spent the money. You acknowledged it was a loan. You have a job. You'll figure it out. Next case. Walking out of that courthouse felt better than any victory I'd had in years. Not because of the money. Honestly, even getting $12,500 back was better than I expected. But because someone in authority had looked at the situation and said, Yeah, you got used, and that's not okay. Madison caught up with me in the parking lot. She really didn't think you'd go through with court. I stopped. She told a room full of people I was broke and stupid while I was funding her lifestyle. What did she think would happen? Madison nodded slowly. For what it's worth, we all told her she was out of line. After you left, Ashley pulled up your company's website and saw you're listed as a senior coordinator. Kayla's boyfriend said your financial setup was better than most people he sees in finance. We all felt terrible. Good, I said. Not mean, just factual. Are you seeing anyone now? Madison asked, which was a weird question. I looked at her. Why? She shrugged. Just wondering if you're doing okay. I'm doing great, actually. Got a dog last month. German Shepherd named Gunner. He doesn't pretend I'm broke while stealing my money, so he's already a better roommate. That got a small laugh out of her. I'm glad you're okay. Here's the thing about that whole situation. It wasn't really about the money, even though 18 grand is nothing to sneeze at. It was about respect, about recognizing when someone sees you as a resource rather than a person. Brittany didn't love me. She loved what I could provide while maintaining the image that she was the capable one. She needed me to be less successful than her in the story she told people, even though reality was the complete opposite. That's not a partner. That's a parasite. The $500 monthly payment started coming in February. Direct deposit, always on time, zero communication attached. Just money appearing in my account like clockwork. I put every payment into my investment account. Figured if she was going to pay me back for 2 years, least I could do was make that money work. Gunner's been the best decision I made post-Brittany. Got him from a breeder who specialized in working line German Shepherds. 8 weeks old when I brought him home. Already showing signs of being smart as hell. We do training every morning before work. Long walks every evening. Having something that depends on me but actually appreciates what I do? Completely different energy. The condo feels more like mine again. I rearranged furniture, got rid of some stuff that reminded me of her, upgraded my home office setup. Bought a really nice espresso machine because I like good coffee and can afford nice things. Started meal prepping again and got my grocery bill back down to reasonable levels. Work's been solid too. Landed another major contract in February that's going to add about $30,000 to my bonus structure this year. Boss mentioned promotion potential if I keep performing at this level. Funny how much easier it is to focus on career growth when you're not being drained financially and emotionally by someone who claims you can't manage money. I did run into Brittany once at a Target in March. She was with some new guy, holding hands in the household goods aisle. The dude was wearing a Rolex and driving what looked like a BMW based on the keys in his hand. She saw me, went pale, and immediately steered him the other direction. Didn't bother me at all. Actually felt bad for him, if I'm honest. Wondered how long before she started telling people he was struggling financially while she managed everything. The friend group drama apparently continued without me. Madison told me through occasional texts that Brittany had effectively been iced out after the truth came out. Ashley felt betrayed because Brittany had apparently borrowed money from her too, with similar sob stories. Kayla was mad because the birthday dinner became this whole dramatic thing. The women who weren't at the dinner heard what happened and took sides. I stayed out of all of it. Wasn't my business anymore. I'd said my piece, got my judgment, moved on. What's wild is how many people have reached out since all this went down. Friends of friends who heard the story and wanted to share their own experiences of being financially used in relationships. Apparently, it's way more common than I realized. People who funded their partner's lifestyle while being told they weren't good enough. People who got dumped after paying off their partner's debt. People who discovered their significant other was using them while secretly building their own nest egg. The $500 monthly payments started coming in February. Direct deposit, always on time, zero communication attached. Just money appearing in my account like clockwork. I put every payment into my investment account. Figured if she was going to pay me back for 2 years, least I could do was make that money work. Gunner's been the best decision I made post-Brittany. Got him from a breeder who specialized in working line German Shepherds. 8 weeks old when I brought him home, already showing signs of being smart as hell. We do training every morning before work. Long walks every evening. The condo feels like mine again, instead of some shared space I was funding solo. Work's been solid too. Landed another major contract in February that's going to add about $30,000 to my bonus structure this year. Boss mentioned promotion potential if I keep performing at this level. I did run into Brittany once at a Target in March. She was with some new guy, holding hands in the household goods aisle. The dude was wearing a Rolex and driving what looked like a BMW based on the keys in his hand. She saw me, went pale, and immediately steered him the other direction. Didn't bother me at all. Actually felt bad for him, if I'm honest. Wondered how long before she started the same routine. The friend group drama apparently continued without me. Madison told me through occasional texts that Brittany had effectively been iced out after the truth came out. Ashley felt betrayed because Brittany had apparently borrowed money from her too, with similar sob stories. Kayla was mad because the birthday dinner became this whole dramatic thing. Then, in April, Madison texted me asking if I wanted to grab coffee. Said she felt terrible about how everything went down and wanted to apologize properly. We met up at a place near my work. She brought me a $50 gift card to my favorite coffee shop and said, "This doesn't make up for anything, but I should have said something at that dinner when Brittany started talking. I knew she was staying at your place. I knew you were helping her out. It wasn't right. I appreciated that. Told her no hard feelings. She wasn't the one who lied to my face for 8 months." Then she dropped a bomb. "Brittany's been telling people you fabricated evidence for the court case, that you photoshopped bank statements and made up texts. She's claiming you're obsessed with her and won't leave her alone." I pulled up my phone and showed Madison the court judgment. Judge saw the original documents. Everything was verified. She can tell people whatever she wants, but the court didn't agree with her version. Madison nodded. I figured. I just thought you should know what she's saying. A week later, Brittany's new boyfriend, the Rolex guy, Sent me a Facebook message. Hey man, Brittany told me about your situation. I don't appreciate you harassing her. You need to move on. I screenshot the message and replied with a photo of the court judgment. Not harassing anyone. She owes me $12,500 per court order and is on a payment plan. If she's told you a different story, that's between you two. I haven't contacted her once since the trial. He read it. Never responded. But 2 weeks later, Madison texted me that Brittany and Rolex Guy had broken up. Apparently, he'd asked to see her phone and bank statements after my message. She'd refused. He'd walked. In May, my company had our annual awards dinner. I won Coordinator of the Year for the second time, which came with a $5,000 bonus and a plaque. My boss gave a whole speech about the contract I'd landed and how my attention to detail saved the company millions. Got home that night, put the plaque on my shelf next to the court judgment document I'd framed as a joke. Gunnar knocked it over with his tail within 5 minutes. Seemed fitting. June was when things got interesting. Brittany missed her payment for the first time. It was 3 days late, then a week late. I sent one email through the court system reminding her of the payment schedule. No response. 2 weeks later, still no payment. I filed a motion with the court for enforcement. Cost me $75, but I wasn't about to let her think she could just stop paying. Court sent her a notice. Payment showed up the next day with an extra $50 penalty the judge had added for late payment. Never missed another one after that. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.